In this lesson, we're going to continue with the second part of the Spanish present tense. In the previous lesson, we covered the case for yo and tú. In this lesson, we're going to continue with él, ella, and usted. For this case, AR verbs will get an A ending. ER verbs get an E. IR verbs get an E as well. So let's take the verb hablar. How do you say he speaks? Él habla. How do you say in Spanish, he speaks English? Él habla inglés. In this case, explicitly saying the pronoun él is optional. Now the next verb. How do you say she learns? Ella aprende. How do you say in Spanish, she learns Spanish? Ella aprende español. And now with vivir, how do you say she lives? Ella vive. How do you say she lives in Canada? Ella vive en Canadá. Let's cover one exercise. Here we have this phrase. Vivo en México, hablo español, y aprendo inglés. You can see the O endings in the verbs. So you know that this corresponds to the person yo. I live in Mexico, I speak Spanish, and I learn English. Now let's change this for Tom. Can you use the same verbs to say that Tom lives in Canada, speaks English, and learns Spanish? Tom is the case for él. So we have Tom vive en Canadá, habla inglés y aprende español. We are using exactly the verbs from this group. Now let's do the same for Alice. This is the case for ella, which has the same form. Alice vive en Francia, habla francés y aprende español. Let's continue practicing with the new verbs. Repeat each verb after you hear it. Comer, beber, comprar, trabajar. Again, trabajar. Mind the A sound. It is A. Trabajar. Viajar. Again, viajar. Viajar. Let's use the verb comer to say she eats an apple. From the present tense chart, you know that ER verbs get an E ending. Ella come una manzana. Now let's use the verb beber to say he drinks water. Él bebe agua. This might feel very systematic at first, finding the correct ending, but with time and practice, it will become second nature. Let's continue practicing with the same word. How do you say he drinks tea? Él bebe té. He drinks coffee. Él bebe café. He drinks beer. Él bebe cerveza. Let's continue with the next verb, comprar. How do you say he buys an apple? Él compra una manzana. Let's use trabajar. How do you say Sandra works at a school? Sandra trabaja en una escuela. Let's use the word viajar. How do you say in Spanish? Pedro travels a lot. Pedro viaja mucho. In the next exercise, we're going to describe this person. First, we're gonna say, Marco is from Argentina, but lives in France. To say Marco is from, we're gonna use Marco es de. So the complete phrase is, Marco es de Argentina, pero vive en Francia. And we have, he works at a bank. Use en un banco to say at a bank. Él trabaja en un banco. He speaks English and Spanish and is learning French. Él habla inglés y español y aprende francés. He travels a lot. Él viaja mucho. Now let's continue describing this person. Let's say, Laura is from Peru, but lives in the United States. Laura es de Perú, pero vive en Estados Unidos. She works at a school. Use en una escuela to say at a school. Ella trabaja en una escuela. She speaks English and Spanish and is learning German. Ella habla inglés y español y aprende alemán. She travels a lot. Ella viaja mucho. Indicating the name of another person, we're gonna use the verb llamar, which means to call. You know the expression me llamo. This is for the yo case. That's why the verb has the o ending. And as you know, it means I call myself. Me is the myself part, and it is understood as my name is. For the tú case, we have te llamas. This means you call yourself, understood as your name is. For él, we're gonna take the verb llamar and we're gonna conjugate it as llama. But we still need to say he calls himself. The word to say himself is se. Él se llama. For the ella case, we will conjugate the verb in the same way. But we still need to say she called herself. The word for herself is se as well. Ella se llama. Let's learn new vocabulary. First we have amigo. It means friend in the masculine case. Amiga means friend in the feminine case. Hermana means sister. Please note how the H is completely silent. Hermana. Hermano means brother. We have this example. Mi amigo se llama Carlos, meaning my friend's name is Carlos. Mi hermana se llama Sofía. My sister's name is Sofía. Mi hermano se llama Mario. My brother's name is Mario. Let's practice with another exercise. Let's say that this person is one of your friends. How do you say, my friend's name is Paula? Mi amiga se llama Paula. How do you say, she lives in France? Ella vive en Francia. She speaks English and is learning French. Ella habla inglés y aprende francés. She works at a school. Ella trabaja en una escuela. Writing exercise. Take pen and paper and write down the description of two of your friends, sister, or brothers. Use the verbs se llama, vive, habla, aprende, and trabaja. Use an online translator if you need to find specific words. This is the end of this lesson.